got a message from Chris here. Cheers for your message, Chris. How did you cope with injuries as a youngster? Have you experienced any pressure to return when not match fit or pressure to play injured? I've got to admit, I think if I was a manager, I would have a zero injury policy. As in, I don't believe in injuries.
Okay.
It frustrates the hell out of me with the current
really
Watford team, you know, out every Saturday, 4 or 5 out with injury. And I think it's a pathetic excuse.
There's an element of it that being a bit harsh, but coming from a man who wasn't injured much, there is definitely an element of truth in it being pathetic.
Is it a mentality thing?
No, I don't know. Listen, there's injuries that you can't get up from, but there's also injuries where I think you could probably get through that. I mean, it was labelled at Daniel Sturridge for a while, you know, and I've played with players that played with Daniel Sturridge, and you think, and there's certain players that I played with that you thought you could probably get through it, but they were a little bit scared to make it worse. So they don't take the option to go through it. And I think there were some players with that kind of mentality that if I play today, I may make it worse. So they don't, like that mentality I don't get. I really don't get. I think if you can get out there were times where I thought, you know, I remember having injections in my ankle I was away at Newcastle and I couldn't get my boot on because I didn't have any feeling in it. And because I'd numbed the pain. But then my boot, it was swollen, but it didn't feel like my own foot, you know what I mean? But like, I'm not sitting here saying I was a hero, like, you know, far from it. But I don't know, would someone else have missed that game? Or I don't know, I would have done anything to be on that pitch at any given time for selfish reasons. You know, like of course I wanted to help my team, but I wanted to be out there. I didn't want to lose my starting place. I didn't want to give up a chance to score goals. I didn't want to... I didn't want someone taking my place, and I would have got out there, you know, no matter what. And sometimes that's actually a more selfish way of looking at things. You think, is that to the detriment of the team? I'm injured and I'm playing. But I would have done anything to be on that pitch, and that's not always the mentality with every player.
Let's talk about your injuries. Again, you mentioned you didn't pick up many injuries. I scoured the internet and I think I found 6 in an entire career. Is so impressive. The big one as well was appendicitis.
Yeah, well, I had a few issues. Like, I had a hernia operation, and this was actually with the birth of my little boy. And I had it a couple of weeks before I was due to give birth, and Ab was like, "You sure you'll be all right?" And I was like, "No, hernia. You done in 5 days." My hernia got infected, so I had the mesh put in, and I got infected. And when Jack was being born, baby Divrat, I was lying in hospital next to Ab, and like she always swears, but she's like the nurses were coming in going, "Do you want a cup of tea, Pete?" And this and that. And Ab's just giving birth, and I'm lying next to her with a dodgy groin.
Absolutely,
and, I was in bits though, you know, like I had a fever. I was so ill. Like I can't believe infection had spread through. I've got pictures of it, which you won't want to see. But my groin had like gone black, and you could see and they said they measured the infection, and it was like on a ridiculous scale, and I was sweating and the fever. It was horrific. And then Ab went home with the baby, and I was still in.
Yeah, but you're getting cups of tea every 5 minutes. What's your problem?
True. Quite enjoying it.
But an actual injury that you had at Stoke, I think was one of the biggest. 27 days out. I think you missed around 6 games with an ankle injury. Looking back on that season, you were in and out of the side. For the players that have obviously sent questions in, how do you adjust your mentality in those seasons?
Like you'd have to speak to people who had broke their legs, and you know I was so lucky. Like touch wood, even now that never happened to me, or you know did the cruciates or were out for a long space of time. But that 6 weeks I remember clear as day, because I hated every single minute of it. You come in at a different time, you don't see the lads. You have to stay around the training ground and do things that were just monotonous to get your strength back up. Sitting on the couch and watching games on a Saturday was repulsive to me. I found it so hard to deal with. And how you have a long-term injury, the mentality. I remember speaking to Jamie Redknapp. We used to travel down to Southampton together. And, he's had his injury issues, and the sort of mentality like you have to have, and then the work rate to get back to playing again is so hard. I remember Ledley King's one of my best friends. You know, when we grew up together, and watching him sort of, you know, we'd all go out to training, and you'd see him and he'd just be on this arm bike, you know, because, and you'd think, oh, like, and he'd be the best player on a Saturday, but just that mentality of watching everyone else going out to have fun, and you're like, it's like the dog, you know, at the Battersea Dogs Home that doesn't get picked. You know, all the other dogs go out and have a massive walk in Battersea Park. And you're just sitting there whimpering, crying, looking at the window going, oh, I wish I was out there.